I don't use the words comic legend on this YouTube channel very often, but for remote control, I have to, because, boys, I'm going to miss this guy. One of my gurus of comedy I grew up watching in the late 70s, early 80s, probably individually one of the best comedic character actors of all time, although he had a diverse career, did episodic television, did directing after and during this show, but I'm going to miss him an awful lot. Now, for a lot of you out there, the name may not ring a bell, but his character name will. The great Frank Bonner has passed away at age 79, and you might know him best, and love him best, and hate him best, as Herb Tarlick, the unofficial guru of WKRP in Cincinnati and the new WKRP in Cincinnati. When the news came across the pike today, a lot of these fans in Canada like me remember a time when it was the #1 show in Canada and so respected when it came up for syndication. It was shown, I think it was a mid-afternoon broadcast right after school. I think 4:30 in the afternoon, especially across the Maritimes. And again, of extremely great career. Now, he passed away as a result of something we call Lewy body dementia. If a lot of people know about that disease, it's very virulent. Now, his daughter, Desiree Boris-Court, posted in a WKRP Facebook group saying that the actor loved his fans and was still sending autograph requests up until the last few weeks of his illness. Thank you for all who followed his career. It will be forever missed. Now, he appeared in 88 of the 90 episodes of WKRP, which aired from 78 to 82. Now, at the time, if I'm not mistaken, that and MASH, The Last of All the Family, Archie Bunker's Place, Three's Company, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, I still think the Jeffersons, the golden era of comedy TV for my generation. Now, Frank was a very cerebral guy. He got his big start, actually, and of all things, an experimental film. Now, born in Little Rock, Arkansas, February 28, 1942, he was the son of the singer Mamie Grace and sax player Frank Woodward Bors. He began his acting career in an experimental film called The Equinox, A Journey into the Supernatural, which I think is on Mystery Science Theater somewhere. This was an experimental film released in 1967 that was really released in 1970 under the title Equinox. Now, again, doing episodic television, and also did, The Route of Mannix at FBI, Emergency, and Cannon. Now, when he showed up with the ensemble of WKRP, it was a sensation. Now, we treated the WKRP cast like family in Canada because he seemed like the aunts and uncles, grandfathers, and parents we wanted to have. Now, Bonner started alongside Gary Sandy as program director Andy Travis, well before we knew who Randy Travis was. Howard Hessman played veteran disc jockey Dr. Johnny Fever. Gordon Jump, of course. The beautiful and indecisive GM Arthur Carlson. Lonnie Anderson, the great beauty, as the good-hearted receptionist Jennifer Marlowe. The great Tim Reed as funky evening DJ Venus Flytrap. The great John Smithers as the hard-working Belly Quarters. And, of course, every journalist's CP style book and training, Richard Sanders as Les Nessman. Now, Bonner and Sanders and Howard Hessman as guests and a few others reprised the role for the sequel series, The New WKRP in Cincinnati, which ran from 91 to 93. Now, Frank Bonner brought so much to this character, the clothing, the attitude, everything else. Now, Herb Tarlick can best be described, imagine the most deviant real estate agent combined with a car salesman, combined with a smarmy politician, with a smarmy televangelist, and a smarmy teacher that basically sucks up the students and staff. Now, Herb's character is at WKRP for at least a decade by the time the show comes on. Now, they're not making much money. They're not embracing the rock stylings. When the Andy Travis shows up, he turns into rock and roll. but Tarlick is kind of the glue that keeps the station financially solvent to low advertising market, courting unconventional advertisers, including Shady Hills Rest Home, Gone with the Wind Estates, and Ferryman's Funeral Homes. He was also not beneath recruiting less reputable advertisers to buy airtime on WKRP, including, our evangelistic wrestler who's buying time on Sunday, the Sunday thing. And of course, Red Wigglers, the Cadillac Worms. Everyone knows Red Wigglers. Now, the Herb Tarlick's effective way of getting money from his clients and coming out with ideas is done despite himself. Now, he's best friends with Les Desmond, are always kowtowing up to Carlson and trying to make Herb Tarlick make himself bigger than what Andy is trying to do. Now, he's totally obsessed with Jennifer Marlowe, even though he's a family man. But the whole series, and I think it was one season, 1/4 of the plots were based on what I call Herb stories. Finding out about his father, finding out about his family, and the interaction that Herb has with every incident, including the battle against WPIG, the famous episode, Thanksgiving, the bombing of turkeys, Riptide, when Johnny Fever goes disco for money, does a music show and loses his mind. Herb becomes best friends. The bombing of the day at WKRP Tower, all kind of different stuff when the Russian wanted to defect. But every episode that Bonner was in on WKRP in Cincinnati, you couldn't take your eyes off him because literally he was the most ugliest dresser in the history of 1970s television. Allegedly, the character had stated he got all the his suits from a golf pro shop across the river in northern Kentucky. So I don't know if that was making fun of golfers or northern Kentucky. Now, one character said no one else makes this kind of clothes anymore due to anti-pollution laws. Polyester, look it up. Now, he's often mocked and different stuff, but there's one episode where Jennifer teaches him to dress correctly, and he loses half his clients because they relate to her because he's slimy like they are. Now, he also predicted the reality show genre of the 1980s. He did a pilot episode. Not a pilot episode, but an episode of something called Real Families, which looked at a certain natural family in Cincinnati, and it completely falls apart. Now, he has some integrity sometimes here and there, but like I said, you look at one episode of WKR in Cincinnati, Johnny Fever, Herb Tarlick, the yin and the yang of the quality of music and the advertising side. But I've sold advertising for newspapers, and I've hung with people who are like Herb Tarlick, and there's only a certain amount of people can be Herb Tarlick. But in 2021, even people in my generation remember WKRP, we could smell a Herb Tarlick, but the bad side of Herb Tarlick is what I'm saying. There's bad Herb Tarlicks and good Herb Tarlicks. There's the Herb Tarlick that has a little bit of integrity. Yes, they push the envelope, but they make the right decisions at the end. But he had so many taglines in the show as well. Don't mess with me, boy. I do everything on the basis of sex. Okay, fine. So it's weird because he's pushing the envelope all the time, and he's being held back. Now, because that Herb's, all I can say is that, is Herb politically correct or just being Herb? If you're into the Me Too movement or whatever, there's aspects of 1970s soap in it, and I tell you why. A lot of the actors from soap, the character actors, showed up on WKRP shortly after soap was in the midst of his changeover when it got less controversial. Now, again, the writers of WKRP did many episodes focusing on Herb, and give an example, the third season, 1/4 of the episodes, 6 out of 22, were based on Herb. Anyway, you want to make him more self-assured, which added dimension. Now, Bonner had directed 6 episodes of the series, which is comparable to Alan Alda doing more episodes of MASH and the other characters on MASH. So technically, he's a first cousin to the Alan Alda MASH side of directing. Now, Herb, again, is still identified more than 30 years after WKRP's initial run ended as a stereotype for unprofessional, bribe-taking, desperate salespeople, with sales professionals being advised not to wear plaid sports coats so as to avoid being associated in customers' mind with the untrustworthy version of Mr. Tarlick. Now, I said we were big in Canada. I'll give you an example. The great Canadian indie rock band, the Rio Statics, released the song The Tarlicks on their 2004 album 2067, loosely based on the character. Bonner appears in the video for the song as a large group of Herb Tarlicks who come out of a landed UFO and swarm the city. So, in 2021, a lot of things have been happening. We saw the rise of Schitt's Creek being recognized at the Emmys. See, the problem with WKRP in Cincinnati, it was the best comedy show out there, but there was other heavy contenders that were giving it to other shows as well. But imagine an era where every week you turned on and the characters weren't like I Love Lucy, Green Acres, pandering copycat or racist characters. Jennifer Marlowe had layers. Bailey Quarters had layers. Andy Travis had layers. Venus Flytrap, who was a teacher. Johnny Fever, the side of his cup, he had layers. Herb Tarlick had layers, but the problem is you brought them out, there was a piece of Herb that would be lost. Would you much rather Herb Tarlick be improved for the 5th season or whatever? It's like the Trailer Park Boys, and God is my witness, ladies and gentlemen. I think the reason why Trailer Park Boys is so popular because it's not the exact same series, but the frailties in the cast characters of WKRP is mimicked in Trailer Park Boys. They were about radio, Trailer Park Boys about drugs, but they all loved each other. They were a family. But the incident where my favorite episode where Jennifer Marlowe was challenging Herb Tarlick to come across, and at the end he's played Jennifer by pretending he wasn't ready, and he kind of puts his jacket backwards and say, "Don't mess with me, boy." When I was growing up, ladies and gentlemen, I did the same thing. If people underestimated me, I played their game, but after he left, I said, "Don't mess with me, boy." And my only regret, I'm sorry I never met him before he passed away, but I would take a step back. I said, "Frank Bonner, you're an honorary Canadian because you gave us so much pleasure." I don't even think he was appreciated in the States as much as he was in Canada, because every time he came home in the 1980s, during the week or on the syndication, there where WKRP was. And it made everybody laugh, and even though when the show was canceled, the music was great, the scripts were great. Stephen Campman, who did New Art later on, was a writer, and, I'm going to miss the guy. So Frank Bonner, and to your family, our condolences from Canada, but, hey, you're young and swinging, no need to worry about tomorrow. Bye-bye. So... we're going to miss you, man. A great life. We're sad that you're gone, but my God, your ether will be laughs and smiles for years. And I challenge that CHCH Retro to bring back WKRP in Cincinnati. You brought back everything else. The Flying Nun, Get Smart, all the crap. Bring back WKRP with original music. I challenge you. CHCH. And every episode of WKRP is classic. There's not a bad episode in the bunch, because there's always something to see, because the posters on the walls alone tell a story. Anyway, have a good one. Rest in peace, Frank Bonner. Bye.